Hello classy people, this is Josh the Top Hat Gamer, and this week I'm reviewing Watch Dogs 2. The original Watch Dogs was a victim of the hype machine. It gets a lot of hate, but at the end of the day it's merely so-so, not awful. With the release of the sequel, it's time to see if the franchise can rise above the original's mediocre reception. Watch Dogs 2 is set in San Francisco as it becomes the next city to install the city-wide CTOS, which connects everyone with everything. This operating system is being used to manipulate the population while also gathering data on them and selling it to the highest bidder. The game's protagonist, Marcus Holloway, joins the notorious hacktivist vigilantes known as DedSec in order to bring the insidious nature of CTOS to light, after the system categorizes him as a suspicious individual based on data gathered from various sources. The plot is fairly basic, but the big business conspiracy element was more than enough to maintain my interest. More than anything, the game provides a great cast of characters, from the affable group of hacktivists in DedSec to the obnoxiously new-age CTO of Bloom Technology and puppet master pulling the strings of CTOS, Dusan Nemec. At the end of the day, it's easy to get invested because we can all relate to being outraged and wanting to do something to change the world for the better, like the members of DedSec. The overall presentation of the game is serviceable, and though you might get the occasional bit of texture pop-in or weird glitchy animations, the game performs fairly well. Watch Dogs 2's representation of San Francisco is bright and surprisingly colourful, filled with all the landmarks you expect to see, and the streets are always bustling with pedestrians and dogs, making the game feel like a living, breathing world. There's also a lot of vivid, cartoonish artwork graffitied all over the city, as well as bordering many of the UI elements, and while these are usually pretty cool, the game's use of image macros and meme-based imagery feels cheap and unnecessary. We get it, nerds like memes. This stuff wears out its welcome super fast, and doesn't age well. Sound-wise, there's plenty to be happy with, from the decent voice acting that brings the various characters to life, to the eclectic collection of music that can be heard on the radio at any given moment. Sound effects are on point too, as the screeching of cars and popping of firearms brings every action sequence to life. In particular, the game excels at technology-based sound effects, from the satisfying chirps and beeps that come with successfully hacking devices, to the muting effect that occurs when you go into your scanning mode. It's a good thing that the game's tech-based audio design is so solid because, surprise surprise, the core gameplay is centered around hacking. As an open-world game, the mechanics on offer range from driving and parkour platforming to cover-based combat and stealth, but constant in every facet of the game is your ability to hack. As a tool, hacking can prove useful in a number of situations, whether you're hacking cars to clear a path on the road, or using various hacks to distract or immobilize enemy forces. It even plays into the platforming when you need to manipulate platforms or obstacles to move forward. Thankfully, the hacking tools are incredibly simple to use but offer plenty of depth within them. Tapping the hack button will initiate a default hack for whatever gadget you target, but you're usually given a number of options which are mapped to the face buttons. This allows you the simplicity to quickly hack things on the fly, or manually choose other options if you find yourself with the time to spare. Hacking vehicles is mostly very basic, but there is some variance when it comes to special vehicles such as forklifts or scissor lifts. Hacking a car will give you bare access to forward, reverse or turn functions, whereas these special vehicles give you control more closely resembling the game's driving mechanics. Speaking of which, the game's driving is rather underwhelming. There's something lifeless and sterile about the driving, where cars handle so rigidly that they just don't feel right. Thankfully, you can just fast travel around the map right from the very beginning, but that doesn't stop the driving from feeling bad when you absolutely must use it. The parkour and platforming feel much better by comparison, and uses a very Assassin's Creed-like freerun system, where holding the trigger will make Marcus ascend or descend as necessary. These mechanics look and feel pretty good thanks in part to some satisfyingly flashy animations, but I question the need to separate the sprint and freerun functions. After so many Assassin's Creed games, it seems like a needless split, and I often found myself forgetting that the two were in fact separate functions. Don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed the basic platforming thoroughly, and I eventually got past this. It just seems like a weird design choice is all. Another odd design choice that caught my attention was the inclusion of cover-based third-person shooting. While it does make sense that the game would include some sort of combat, if only to satisfy the wider gaming audience, any sort of lethal gunplay feels incredibly out of place. The term ludonarrative dissonance is thrown around a lot these days to describe gameplay that doesn't fit with the story or characters of a game, but I've never felt such a strong example of this before. Marcus and his friends seem too genuinely nice to just walk out and shoot gang members, security guards and cops, to then go back to base and joke around. In terms of how the gunplay actually feels, it's fairly solid. Guns feel weighty and most enemies don't take a huge amount of damage before they go down, so it's certainly empowering. It's just a shame then that the mechanic feels so inappropriate, as I only found myself using it for the sake of detailing the mechanic in this very review. For what it's worth, there are some non-lethal options available, but there are far fewer on offer than the veritable armory available for the more murder-happy players out there. If you are intent on playing non-lethally, then stealth is your best chance at making progress. It's just a shame then that the stealth is inconsistent at the best of times and frustrating at its worst. Enemy sightlines are unclear, as is the impact of light on visibility levels, and while the previous game made enemies enter a suspicious state before becoming full-blown alert, Watch Dogs 2 guards go on the offensive almost instantly. Making matters worse, every guard in the game works on the hive mind style of stealth AI, where one person spotting you means everyone knows where you are. However, you are able to lose your enemies fairly reliably, and by using your hacking tools effectively, the stealth mechanics feel just a little less painful. You even have an RC car and drone that allow you recon options without putting Marcus in the firing line. While I think that's a cool idea, the fact that a fair amount of missions can be completed without Marcus even setting foot inside enemy territory is kinda lame. It's a bit of a shame that your options come down to abusing your hacking abilities to offset the game's ridiculously attentive guards, or using an RC car to trivialize the entire thing. With all that said, I do look back on my time spent with the game fondly. Stealth was my usual approach, and once you learn exactly what you can get away with, and what tools can help you combat the unclear sneaking elements, it's honestly pretty fun. And I was blown away by the variety that Watch Dogs 2 offers in terms of mission types. Pipe dream style hacking minigames, stealth infiltrations, hacking puzzles that force you to switch camera angles to hack key gadgets, and ambush scenarios are just a handful of the mission types on offer throughout the game. And if you find you need a break from the main story, there are a number of side missions and collectibles scattered around the map. The best part about most of this side content is that they provide smaller stories to go along with the main fight against CTOS, so you aren't just doing them to clear them off the map, you're doing them because it's another strike against the man. So while Watch Dogs 2 stumbles a little bit with its poor driving, out-of-place shooting, and less than ideal stealth, the hacking mechanics and overall brighter tone leave me feeling much more positive about this installment than its predecessor. Once you get used to its quirks, Watch Dogs 2 is a really fun game, and it's definitely worth spending time with. Watch Dogs 2 gets the top gamer rating of good. While not quite as extreme as the jump in quality from Assassin's Creed 1 to 2, Watch Dogs 2 is a marked improvement over the original, with a much more likeable cast of characters and an overall lighter tone. The gameplay still needs some work, but with some time it can be genuinely entertaining. If you liked the first game even a little bit, or if you found that it only just missed the mark, then I definitely recommend Watch Dogs 2. Thanks for watching. I hope you found the review informative. If you missed last week's review of Dishonored 2 or my top 5 settings in video games, click the annotations. Now if you'll excuse me, I've got some sick flips to do. In the game. Can't do them in real life.